Let's draw a square. Congratulations, that's a square. Now let's draw another square, but this one is going to overlap the first one. Then with just a few lines, we can connect them, erase a few lines, and now we have a cube. Slap some shading on it, and now we have a three-dimensional shape.
Oh, wow!
But that's just scratching the surface of what we're going to be learning in this video. If you have a problem with your drawings looking flat or two-dimensional or only as deep as the paper you're drawing on, then I have news for you. You suck! Just kidding. My name is Chris Kempter, and I'm a 100% self-taught artist. I didn't go to college, and I am a living example that you do not need a degree to be a great artist. That sounded a little conceited. I learned by watching other artists share their techniques and experiences on YouTube, which is exactly what I'm going to be doing in this video. By the way, if you're new to this channel and you don't know me as an artist, you can go to my website, chriskempter.com, and see what paintings I've done. One of those is right on the back wall, by the way. Anyway, let's break this video down into 4 sections. First, we will be drawing cubes, which are just squares that are three-dimensional. Then we'll be drawing spheres and how to make them appear to have depth. And then the combination of the first two, cylinders. Then I'm going to give you a real-life example of how to apply those previous lessons to your artwork. Example 1. Take a look at this cube. Why does this cube look three-dimensional? Well, because it is. You thought I was going to say something mind-blowing, didn't you? Gotcha! But you are looking at a 3D object on a 2D surface of your phone screen or your computer screen. So why does this look three-dimensional and your drawings don't? A very simple reason. Shading and perspective. Now that might sound really simple, but that opens up a world of rules and techniques that we need to understand before we can make great art. The first thing we need to know before we start is where our light source is coming from. If we don't have a light source, our cube kind of becomes a weird looking polygon. An outline of our shape is what happens when we don't have a clear light source. For example, take a look at this fancy paper little cube I made just for this video. If I put the light directly in line with the camera's POV, there are very few or no shadows at all. This creates a very 2D and flat feel. But watch what happens when I move the light away from the camera's POV and out at an angle. We instantly get a sense of the cube's depth. And if I turn the cube, we get a sense of perspective and depth. Now the thing about drawing and any painting or art that is done on a two-dimensional surface is it's not actually three-dimensional. So what we are doing is we are trying to trick the viewer's eye into thinking that what we are doing is three-dimensional. So we have to create an illusion that makes our art appear to have depth. So when you are drawing with a single color, the only thing we have is the value, darkness, shading, etc., and perspective to create this effect. So now that we have a definite direction for our light source, we can talk about how to draw a cube. As I showed you in the beginning of this video, a cube is nothing more than a square turned at an angle. So the simplest way to draw a cube is to start with 2 squares that are overlapping slightly. Then draw some lines to connect them, and there you have a cube. But if we want to make it look 3D, we need to add some shading. Because our light source is a slight bit more on the top of this cube, that will be our brightest side. But even this isn't great because we don't have a frame of reference of what our cube is sitting on. It's just kind of levitating right now. To fix this, we need to add a floor or table to our drawing. The best way to do this is to start with laying out a simple grid. Now our grid needs to be at an angle, not straight up and down. Once we have our grid, we repeat the cube drawing process over again, only this time we will follow our grid lines to draw the squares. And if you have a grid that is slightly angled to give you the perspective of a flat surface, our shape is not going to be a perfect square. It's going to be slightly in the diamond direction a little bit, but that's fine for this example. Just follow those lines on your grid. Now identify our light direction and draw a line from our light source to the cube. Now imagining our light is like the sun, which means it's far enough away from our object to not cause any foreshortening effects, which is something I'm not getting into in this video. We have enough to discuss. We can draw a parallel line from the edge of our cube to the ground. To make this easier to see, let's do this from a side view. Draw a line for our floor, then a square, then what direction you want your light coming in from. It doesn't really matter where you put your light source, this process will apply. Our light is on the right side, casting a shadow on the left. Just draw a parallel line from the top edge of the square to the ground. Everything within this section is in the shadow. Now, let's apply this to our three-dimensional cube. And by the way, I would recommend, if it helps you, just make a little paper cube like this, set it on the ground, and put a light in different directions, and that will really help you figure out the natural way that a shadow is cast. It's really good to have a reference. And you get to feel awesome having created this little cube. I even named him. His name is Larry. After choosing our light direction, we can draw a parallel line from our cube to the ground. And the part that is the closest to where the cube meets the floor will be in the darkest shadow. So imagine there is a crack at the base of the cube, and that will be our darkest part. If the light is a hard light, the line between the shadow and light will be hard. An exact copy of our shape. If the light is soft, there will be a blend between our light and shadow that will get more faded the further it gets away from the cube. Then shade one of our light-facing sides with just a little more shading to indicate the light is shining just a little bit more on the other one than on this one. Now, this isn't that big of a deal when drawing cubes, but this will definitely come into play much more once we get into the spheres and cylinders. And the last thing is the part of the cube that is closest to the ground and is closest to the fully lighted floor will have a small amount of bounce light that will reflect off the ground and illuminate the side closest to it. This small little detail will really help your drawing and make it look incredibly 3D and really place it in your drawing. So now we can move on to example 2, spheres, aka balls. And I'm going to try to refrain from making all the jokes that my brain is desperately telling me is appropriate. They're not. So what you will find is there will be through lines of techniques for these examples. So once you learn one, most of the time they will apply to the next one. With a spherical object, there are two major differences between the cube that we need to go over. Number one, a ball doesn't have any hard edges that we can draw shadow lines from. Growing up, my parents had this super cool globe of the world. It was attached at the north and the south pole with a steel frame, and we were able to spin it. Absolutely love that thing. Definitely gonna have to get one when I am not broke and trying to make YouTube videos to support my family. Click the like button. I might be able to afford one day if you do that. So if we imagine our ball is like that, we can draw a line down from the center in the direction we want our light source to be coming from the North Pole to the South Pole. Then draw the perpendicular circular line, the equator, and now we have the basic structure lines of our sphere. If our sphere is sideways to the light direction, we can draw straight lines in equal increments as they get closer to the poles. This will give us guidelines to help us with shading. Darkest at the South Pole, getting lighter as we approach the North Pole. We can use the blending tool to give us a little bit more of an even gradient. But if our ball is at an angle, our shading lines will be circles that get larger as they get further from the poles. Laying out another grid like in example 1, we can identify our poles, connect our poles with a line, then draw in our shading guide circles. For this example, I'm going to use one of my son's ping pong balls, which I actually found a use for these things other than my son throwing them at the back of my head. I'm just kidding, he never does that. Unlike with a cube, which has a flat surface that makes contact with the floor, a ball only has one point of contact. So depending on how low our light source is to the ground, will depend on how we draw the shadow. The lower the light is to the ground level, the slimmer the shadow and more oval it will be. The more straight down it is, the more round it will be. Now that we have covered that, we can continue following the guidelines we drew out earlier. Starting at the base of the ball with the darkest colors, we can gradually reduce the shading as we move around the ball towards the light, erase the guidelines and blend in the layers. Like in example 1, draw a line from our light source direction from our equator to the ground to get our shadow outline. Throw in some darker shading at the bottom to increase the contrast, and like with a cube, remember to put the bounce light from the ground back at the closest part of the ball like so. That will really make the sphere pop and appear to have depth. If you're using reference, which I would highly recommend, especially when you're learning, you can practice with a ping pong ball or whatever round object you can come up with a light coming in from different directions to improve your skill. Now, I would like to say something to all my beginner artists out there. Don't get discouraged if your art doesn't look amazing. I've been painting and creating art for 8 years at this point. This stuff takes time, and if you don't listen to a single thing I say, please, please, please do not use AI at all in your art or your art process. AI is a shortcut, and shortcuts are always the longest road. As my dad used to say, nothing worth having comes easily. So if you're struggling, that's fine. That's part of the process. These are growing pains. Take these basic examples and draw them over and over and over again, and take the time to teach your hands as well as your mind the right muscle memory skills in order for you to move on to other things. And speaking of other things, it's time to get to the third example in this video, cylinders. This is just the first 2 examples merged into one. The only real difference is the shadow, because from the end, the shadow will look like a ball, and from the side, it will look like a triangle. But if it's from an angle, it looks like a ball tangle? Wow, that sounded bad. To draw a cylinder, we first need to draw an oval, depending on how tilted our cylinder is. That's why it's a great idea to grab a can or a rolling pin or something like this to use as a reference. Then draw a line down the center of our oval. Then a perpendicular line from the first one, creating an X. Cylinders are round tubes, basically. They will have 2 equator lines instead of 1, like spheres. The X will establish our 2 equator placements. So we have our profile lines and the arc peak that is closest to us. Like I said just a second ago, it's a great idea to grab a rolling pin or a can or whatever cylinder you can get your hands on to use as a reference. And practice drawing cylinders, cubes, and spheres. Get references for all of them. There are no shortcuts, you just gotta put in the time, you gotta put in the work. The right techniques and doing it over and over and over again until you're blue in the face are the only things that's gonna make you a great artist. Put the can in different positions and the light coming in from different directions and just draw. You'll thank me later. Now let's apply these examples to something practical, because we all know that no one's gonna buy a painting of a sphere, a cube, or a cylinder. Well, most of the time. You know, that's actually a true story. I drew that painting as a complete joke, and somebody bought it. That blew my mind. Literally, people will buy anything. I decided to use one of my cameras as my final example. I chose it because a camera makes up all three of our geometric shapes. The body of the camera is a rectangle cube-like box. Our lens is a cylinder, and the end of the lens will serve as the sphere in this example. I drew this completely by hand using a reference photo that I took of one of my other cameras with my camera, for the purpose of drawing a picture of a camera that I then filmed with the camera that I'm drawing the photo of. Sorry, got a little bit of a Inception vibe going on there. The light is a soft light coming in from the right side of the photo. It being a soft light will make my shadow less sharp and more blended. I threw a rough sketch in to get a feel of my perspective. Just a tip, make these lines that you're putting in as your structure lines really light so it's easier to erase them. You will definitely thank me later. So once I got the overall composition like I wanted it, I started laying out more details and more distinct structure lines. One of the great things about drawing is you can make mistakes and still recover from them. I really struggled with making the lens look right, but I couldn't seem to figure out what was off about it. After redrawing the lines and messing around with it for way too long, I realized that because the lens is a long tube that is coming towards the viewer's perspective, it is slightly foreshortened. And this is a subject that completely requires its own full tutorial, and I definitely do not have time to go over it in this video. But subscribe, because that is going to be a video that I do in the future, so stay tuned for that. But for now, all you need to know is that the top of the lens profile and the bottom lens lines are getting farther apart as they come to the end. That finally gave me the perspective I was looking for. Following my reference photo and using the light direction rules we went over in the first three examples, we can slowly start to get the shading depth we are looking for. The grip of the camera has a texture on it that was a little bit of a challenge to draw. The dark cracks are there even in the parts that are in the direct light, but it's the highlights that really make the difference. You can use your eraser to great effect to get this texture. Just slightly erase the area that is in the light and continue to put the shadow cracks back in, and you will be able to get some amazing results. The reason it is important to learn these very basic shapes and how light works in these different scenarios is because they will apply to everything you will draw or paint. You need to understand how to crawl before you can run. It might not seem like you're getting anywhere at first, but you are building your art foundation. Nobody cares what the foundation looks like until it starts crumbling. Everybody wants to decorate the interior or put the finishing touches on the outside of the house, but that won't matter if your house falls down. If you're new to art or you are mainly an acrylic or oil painter, then you can click one of these videos to see me go through a complete time-lapse video from start to finish of one of the many paintings that I have. I've got a ton of these videos on my channel, so if you want to see them, just click one of these videos. And that's it for today. I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace.